In the first half of 1983, the people of Handsworth and Handsworth Wood in Birmingham, England, were living in fear. Women were warned by police not to open their door to strangers, and the community was on high alert. And the reason why is because 3 Asian women had been murdered in their homes one day after the other, making people wonder if there was a serial killer on the loose. On Stockwell Road in Handsworth, a Mr. Satwinder Bamra found the bodies of his wife and sister, 28-year-old Miss Arvind Bamra and 22-year-old Kamal Bamra, still in their beds, beaten and strangled. But 1.5 miles away, a day earlier, in Handsworth Wood, a local wealthy Asian business owner found the body of his 67-year-old mother, also beaten and strangled to death. This story will focus on the case of 67-year-old Wati Suri and the question on everybody's lips: who killed the 67-year-old grandmother and why? On Tuesday the 8th of March 1983, a Mr. Baig Nath Suri, a wealthy import trader of a clothing company, returns to his luxury 5-bed, 12-roomed detached home on North Drive in Handsworth Wood, B20, on his lunch break. Mr. Baig Nath Suri lived in the home with his wife, who was at work at the time, and 4 children who were aged 18, 15, 13 and 8 at the time, and they were at school. And his mother, the victim, who did not speak any English and had come from her native country, India, 2 years earlier in 1981, and was due to fly back there in 2 weeks' time. Mr. Suri got the shock of his life when he entered his home, because lying on the sitting room floor was the lifeless and unresponsive body of his 67-year-old mother. She'd been strangled to death with one of his neckties and battered very viciously. She'd been dragged from one room to the other throughout the 12-roomed home, and marks on her body showed that she'd even been dragged over broken glass. One of her teeth had been knocked out, and there was blood coming out of her mouth. Her jaw had also been broken and fractured in several places. She'd been kicked and heavily beaten, leaving more than 30 injuries to her body in what police described as just short of torture. 3 expensive gold bracelets had been ripped from her arms, and a red oval ring had been ripped off the finger on her left hand. Wati Suri also had a gold necklace ripped from her neck. The whole house had also been ransacked. Police were called and they began a murder investigation. They believed that Wati Suri had let her killers in, so either she knew them or she had been tricked into opening the front door. And once inside, the assailants had beaten Wati Suri, who did not speak any English, into revealing where the valuables were. Police believed the motive was robbery and said that the killer or killers would have been heavily bloodstained and could have scratches on their face. Nearly £5,000 worth of jewellery was stolen and £900 in cash, a lot of money in the 1980s. A combined camera radio, which was very rare at the time, was also stolen, and due to how rare it was, police believed that finding this camera radio would potentially lead them to the killer or killers. A VCR video player, films, 2 cameras and a checkbook had also been stolen. An incident room was set up at Thornhill Road Police Station in Handsworth, where 30 police officers began working on the case, and Superintendent John Moore, who was leading the hunt for the killers, appealed to the public for any help or information that would help with the case. Officers spread the murder hunt around the country to Wolverhampton, London, Wales and Leicester, concentrating on the Asian community and people they'd been given tip-offs about. Police also began scouring derelict buildings in the area and checking junk shops. They also checked jewelry shops in case the killers had tried to pawn any of the missing jewelry, as well as the jewelry that had been ripped off the body of the victim. A neighbour came forward saying that she'd seen 67-year-old Mrs. Wati Suri alive at around 12:10 midday that day, but within 2 hours she'd be found dead by her son. Other neighbours came forward saying that they had seen 3 men, all believed to be Asian, near the home where the victim was found, and police released an artist's impression of the 3 men who they were looking to question. The 3 men were described as being around aged 30 to 40 years old. 2 days after 67-year-old Wati Suri's murder, police ruled out a link between the murder of the wife and sister-in-law that were found a mile and a half away, also in Handsworth on Stockwell Road, saying that it was no longer being considered as the rampage of a serial killer targeting lone Asian women, but 2 separate incidents that were not connected. At the inquest into Wati Suri's murder on Tuesday the 15th of March 1983, Birmingham coroner Dr. Richard Whittington said that Wati Suri had fought for her life. He also pleaded with the public to give all help possible to the police to help find the killers, saying, "It may be that there is someone at large who would repeat a crime such as this." He then urged the public to watch a Police 5 television programme about the killing that was to be screened on Thursday evening, the 17th of March 1983, about the case. Police 5 was a British TV programme similar to Crime Watch that reconstructed major unsolved crimes in order to appeal to the public for help. It aired on ITV from 1962 to 1992 and was presented by the late Shaw Taylor. Due to a tip-off, on Wednesday the 20th of April, 4 teenage boys were arrested and remanded in custody, accused of murdering the 67-year-old grandmother. 16-year-old Balvinder Singh Hia and 16-year-old Narinder Singh Chauhan of Church Street, Lozells, and also brothers Navinder Singh Shinji, aged 17, and his older brother, 18-year-old Tarlochan Singh Gill, both of Rowland Road, Handsworth. The funeral of 67-year-old Wati Suri took place on Wednesday the 15th of June 1983, 3 months after her brutal murder, at Heathfield Road Hindu Temple, with the procession moving onto Newton Road Crematorium in West Bromwich. Police warned drivers to avoid the area during the funeral procession. The 4 teenagers appeared before Birmingham Crown Court, where they all denied murder and burglary, and almost all of the evidence presented against the teens were from Detective Sergeant Colin James, Detective Sergeant Leslie Leake, and Detective Sergeant Ernest Robinson. When Detective Sergeant Colin James took the stand, he told the court that 18-year-old Tarlochan Singh Gill, the eldest of the 4 teens, had told him in a confession that one of the others had dragged Wati Suri into a room and her face was bleeding, so he gave her a towel. Detective Sergeant Colin James also said that Tarlochan had confessed to him that he had told Wati Suri to shut up, but she would not, so he ran away, and how he could still hear Wati Suri's screams. On the stand, the detective sergeant also claimed that Tarlochan insisted that he would never go back inside the house, although he was willing to show officers where the 4 of them had committed the burglary. Also, Detective Sergeant Leslie Leake took the stand and told the court that 16-year-old Narinder Singh Chauhan had admitted to him in a confession that he had took part in the burglary at the North Drive home in Handsworth Wood, but that he fled back to school when he saw the violence. Detective Sergeant Leslie Leake also claimed that 16-year-old Narinder had told him that after the murder, 18-year-old Tarlochan, one of his co-accused, had threatened to kill him if he opened his mouth and spoke to the detective. Detective Sergeant Leslie Leake also claimed that Narinder had told him that during the commission of the crime, he had told Tarlochan to stop beating the old lady up, but he didn't try to stop him for fear of being beaten up himself. During the trial, 17-year-old Navinder Singh Shinji, the brother of Tarlochan, told the courts that he had never ever been to the house on North Drive in Handsworth Wood where Wati Suri was killed, and that he had been at home on the day of the murder. But Detective Sergeant Ernest Robinson, another detective, told the courts that Navinder Singh Shinji had confessed to him that he had been involved and also said to him, "I'm a burglar, not a killer." Detective Ernest Robinson then told the courts that Navinder Singh Shinji had also told him that he heard the old lady shouting in the hall when they were searching the house, and he pushed her and ran off. Another detective, Detective Constable Tariq Samra, also took the stand and said another defendant, 16-year-old Balvinder Singh Hia, had told him in his confession that he was the lookout guy, whilst the other three went inside the home to burgle it. But he did not know what had happened inside until he read about it in the papers. Out of the 4 teenagers on trial, only brothers Tarlochan and his brother Navinder took the stand, where they claimed that the statement confessions the police had used as evidence against them at trial had been made up by the police. They all denied the murder and burglary. However, on Wednesday the 1st of February 1984, the jury took more than 7 hours to reach their verdicts, which were unanimous: guilty of murder, except in the case of 16-year-old Balvinder Singh Hia, who was found guilty of murder by an 11-1 majority. The teenagers were all ordered to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, but Tarlochan, who was the eldest and aged 18 at the time of the murder, was sentenced to life in prison. They were all also found guilty of burglary, and the teens under 18 were given a 12-month sentence for burglary to run concurrent with their murder sentence, whilst Tarlochan, who was 18 at the time of the crime, was given 2 years to run concurrent. In 1985, a year after being convicted, 3 out of the 4 teenage boys, Balvinder Singh Hia, Narinder Singh Chauhan, and Navinder Singh Shinji, had their convictions overturned at the Court of Appeal due to lack of evidence and were released. But Tarlochan Singh Gill, who was the eldest of the teens, had his conviction upheld because, according to his police interview, he had confessed to the crime and he was to remain in prison. 10 years later, in January 1994, Tarlochan, now aged 29, was cleared of murder after 11 years in prison following new evidence regarding the West Midlands Serious Crime Squad. In particular, Sergeant Colin James, who had took the stand in the original trial and gave testimony of Tarlochan confessing to the murder to him during his police interrogation. The West Midlands Serious Crime Squad was in operation from 1974 to 1989, when they were disbanded by Police Chief Geoffrey Dear. In August 1989, when the squad was shut down, West Yorkshire Police were asked by the Police Complaints Authority to investigate the activities of the West Midlands Serious Crime Squad, from 1986 onwards. After investigations into allegations of misconduct, incompetence, and abuse of power, with some of the misconducts leading to wrongful convictions. As cases brought forward by the West Midlands Serious Crime Squad began to frequently collapse, pressure mounted for the squad to be investigated, including pressure from MPs. Over 100 cases collapsed or were squashed on appeal, with over 60 people having their convictions overturned. In 1994, disciplinary action was taken out against 7 officers of the West Midlands Serious Crime Squad, whilst 10 others avoided disciplinary action by retiring early or leaving. 100 other officers received advice about police procedures. The Director of Public Prosecutions, Barbara Mills, agreed with a report written by the Police Complaints Authority about the misconduct of the West Midlands Serious Crime Squad, but decided not to prosecute any officers. She was widely criticised for this. Allegations that plagued the West Midlands Serious Crime Squad were allegations of plastic bags being put over the head of suspects with their mouths covered in order to partially suffocate them, to frighten them into a confession. One suspect claimed that he had been threatened with a syringe, where the police said that they would inject him if he did not sign a confession. Tarlochan had claimed that he had been forced to sign a confession after being stripped naked and beaten with a wet towel by the police. He also said that the police had also ripped out some of his hair to force him to sign the confession, saying that he was involved in the murder of Wati Suri. The West Midlands Serious Crime Squad were also accused of poor management practices, repeated techniques of falsification, poor performance, police taking shortcuts, and whenever another officer reported their malpractice and misconduct, they often reported being targeted and bullied. The only piece of evidence linking Tarlochan to the murder of Wati Suri was said to be the confession that he allegedly gave to Detective Sergeant Colin James of the West Midlands Serious Crime Squad. On Thursday the 27th of January 1994, at the Courts of Appeal, Lord Justice Leggett said that doubts over the credibility of officers from the now disbanded West Midlands Serious Crime Squad meant that they could not rely on the interview given by the police during the trial. Also, the confession that Tarlochan had allegedly given to the police had mysteriously disappeared without explanation, meaning that it could not be forensically examined. Tarlochan Singh Gill was now a free man. As he emerged from the cells, for the first time in 11 years, he looked elated. Outside the court, Tarlochan told reporters, "It feels great to be free, but I feel very bitter about the time I spent behind bars. It's a tragedy. I mean, more than 10 years is a life ruined." Surrounded by around 20 of his family and friends, Tarlochan said, "The first thing I want to do is say hello to my mum. Just get me out of here." Since the overturned convictions of the teenage boys, nobody else has been arrested for the murder of 67-year-old Wati Suri. The case remains unsolved.